Hi, it's Ed from Metric Mogul, and today I wanted to go into a little bit about marketing architecture, how you design your different systems in order to become more data driven when you have data spread across lots of different systems. And the example I'm going to be using is a lead generation site. And when I talk about lead gen, I don't just mean affiliate sites, I mean things like insurance. The automotive is another great one as well. Credit cards, loans, that kind of thing. So any site where you sign up, you provide your information, and then you want to remarket to that person using any of your activation channels that you have. And the reason these particular sectors are interesting is because the transaction happens offline, and by offline I mean not necessarily offline, but off website, typically, either over the phone or in store. So this obviously applies to retail, offline, online as well. But the second problem is the lead time. So sometimes it can take weeks, months from submitting a lead to actually closing the deal. And those two things make this particularly important to look at. So here's I'm going to show you the kind of typical architecture most people have in place and take it from there. So most people would start, as you'd expect, with a website, and that website has is typically connected to a CRM system. Okay, and most people as well have some sort of analytics platform on their site as well. We'll call this GA, Google Analytics, for the moment. And when I visit this website, I come in through a particular ad campaign. I visit the website, and I then submit a form to submit my lead. So that lead goes to the CRM. And let's say I get given a lead ID of 8. Now this lead contains details such as my email, my name, my phone number, and so on. Potentially what I'm interested in. At the same time, if you're using GA, you would typically send a lead event. You would send an event with that ID 8 for future reference. But what you can't send to GA is you can't send PII, so you can't send email or anything like that. We are simply looking at the fact that lead 8 has gone into this system. Okay, so that's where the website then is left out, and the more of the offline type process and approach happens. So let's say in this example, we have a salesperson. This salesperson calls up every lead in the platform to figure out whether to qualify them or not. And that lead then either gets qualified. Let's say in my case, I get qualified. I'm approved for this application. Let's say I applied for a loan. And so in the CRM system, against my customer record, I have a little drop down. It says qualified, not qualified, and that has been set as qualified. Now, here's the problem. The problem is that you're now separating data. You've got all the behavioral data about what I did on the site is sitting in Google Analytics, in your analytics platform. And all the data about who I actually am, and some of the more important data about everything that happened after I became a lead, is sitting in your CRM system. And typically what you want to do as a marketer is you want to do two things. Number one, you want to remarket to these people, because even though I'm qualified, maybe I haven't signed on the dotted line, and you've got to do that extra bit of convincing to get me across the line. So you want to be able to do that. And number two, you want to go after anyone who looks like me. So we're going to use lookalike audiences, similar audiences, whatever you care to call it. But we need to go after that group of people, because we know that I came in, I was qualified, and therefore if we can increase the percentage of leads we're getting who are likely to convert, then we're going to be using our marketing budget more effectively. So what we can do is we can go after these two different audiences in various ways. But typically, if you are going after remarketing, because these are known people, we know their email address, we know their phone number, you would typically go after them through email or SMS. But we may also want to do some advertising to them on social. Obviously paid search, so if they're searching for keywords that are relevant to them, maybe they're searching for the competitors, we want to pop up just to remind them, hey, you've started the process with us, why don't you finish it off? And display, of course, so all the channels. Display, there we go, can't spell today. So we can target these people across all of these. So that's what we want to do as a use case. We want to, it's not a win back campaign, but it's a final push to get them from lead to conversion. Meanwhile, we've got the similar audiences. Now these guys are higher up the funnel. So if we look at a typical funnel, here we go. So you kind of got awareness, consideration, all the way down to purchase down here. All right. I forget what the middle one is now, but the remarketing audience we're talking about is kind of at this stage, and we want to get them down here. The similar audience is very much at this stage. These are people we've not talked to yet. They're anonymous. We don't know them, and we're just trying to get them to convert. So similar audiences, because we don't have any of their personal details, we can only really target them on these particular platforms: social, paid search, and display. And the way you do that is you export a list of the people that have converted or qualified, and you upload them into these platforms using either the API or a CSV list. Okay, so that's kind of remarketing 101. That's not really what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is how you go about doing that process effectively. So let's head back to our scenario here. So if you remember, we've got a guy who came to the website, submitted a lead. That lead is stored in the CRM system. We've then qualified that person with our friendly salesperson. And we're also collecting behavior data in GA. But GA doesn't know this person is qualified. It just knows when they come to the website right now. Okay, so what do we do with this information? Well, what we want to do is we want to get this information into our activation platforms, as I said. So for the qualified people, we want to go after email and SMS. And for these guys, I'm just going to put ad tech. Okay, so by ad tech, I'm talking about these ones here: social, paid search, display, and so on and so forth. Appreciate my writing is horrible. These tablets are a lot harder to use than they look. Okay, so typically what happens, we get our marketer, our friendly marketer here. He will go in or request from the CRM system a list of anyone who is qualified in, say, I don't know, the last 7 days, right? So he gets all of that list. He makes a little list, probably on his own computer, violating probably some PII rules in along the way. And he then uploads that into his email platform, and he uploads it into the ad tech. And then from there, we can then send out a relevant message, a little envelope to the person, and we can show them a pretty banner on a website, okay, with the products they want to buy. Simple, straightforward, except it's not. Because this process, for Mr. Marketer, takes a long time. If you're dealing with millions of customers, this is a very slow progress. And, there's a bit of a lag. We're getting 7 days worth of data. Maybe this guy can only spend half a day doing it. So we're always behind schedule. We're always going to be one step behind the curve. He may not even be in charge of the CRM system. He may have to talk to developers to get that CRM data out. He's then got to mess about in whatever system he chooses to use to build this list. And then he has to upload it to these platforms. And I've only written 2 here, but in reality, maybe we've got to upload to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, email, SMS platform, Google Ads, DB360. That's 7 platforms. So that's 7 potential lists he's got to upload to every single week. And that, you can imagine, is not going to get done. And then he goes on holiday and the whole thing falls apart. So this is what we don't want to do. This is bad for general. It's too manual. It relies on one person, and it's certainly not scalable at all. The other thing is it's very simple. It's very simple here. I want you to imagine another scenario where maybe we've grown so big as a brand that we get tens of thousands of leads every day and we have 100 salespeople. How do those salespeople know who to contact? They can't call everyone. So we need some sort of mechanism, potentially in the future, to work out which of those leads are likely to convert. So here's where your BI team steps up. Your BI team is sitting over here and they say, hey, we've got this great algorithm. We're going to call it PTC, propensity to convert. So the BI team has created this great statistical model. You feed it the data and they will give you a score for every single person, a percentage of how likely that person is to convert, and then the salespeople can call that person up. But again, we've introduced here another system and another thing that needs to be sorted out, because the BI team, sure, they could just take the CRM data, much like our marketing team did. But this would only give them information like your age, your email, your name, your location. And sure, that would be a start. We could maybe work out that, I don't know, people called Dave are more likely to convert. Maybe people in particular areas, more affluent areas, are likely to be qualified. Yeah, sure, it's a start. But the real power comes here when you also get the data out of GA. And GA has all the raw behavioral data. Now imagine if you combine these two things. So not only do we know that they live in a particular postcode, but we may also know that they visited the website every day for the last week. That would probably be a strong indication that this person is much more ready to buy than someone who only visited once a week but also lived in the same postcode. So the more information we can feed to the BI team, the more likely and the better and cleverer things they could do. So maybe if you gave them more information, not only could they calculate propensity to convert, they could also calculate LTV, lifetime value, or in fact predicted lifetime value, and maybe next best product, NBP, next best product. If we've got a big store with I don't know, maybe we've got 10 types of credit card and we're not sure which to offer them, if we know they've been looking at a particular area of the site and we know they're from this location, we can look in our history and go, oh, people like that used to buy product B. We should offer product B to this guy. So your BI team are doing all this clever stuff. But as I said, it's these links here. This link coming in from your CRM, coming in from your analytics, that most companies do not have, and they're not really investing in doing that. So this process tends to be very manual. You're talking about antiquated systems, pulling CSV files around. Often FTP sites are involved, or it relies on someone to manually drop data into a bucket, maybe a cloud storage bucket, there we go. And it's just an old way of doing things. And again, we're going to face the same problems that the marketers did. If someone goes on holiday, the whole thing falls apart, but also it's just slow. By the time we've done our modeling, it's going to be out of date. And not only do you have the data coming in, but then you've got to figure out two things. One, you've got to get the output of your modeling back in to the CRM system so that the salesperson can look at it. But you have to get the output of your modeling back into, also into the CRM system so the marketer can export it if you're doing that. But or you get your BI team to upload it straight into the ad tech. But again, that is extra stuff. So by the time a company gets to this stage, what they tend to do is they move from the manual process to a bit of an automated process, and they normally go to try and build their own system. So they go for a custom build option. All right, custom build. They hack together, not hack, but they invest a lot of money, certainly, putting together their own servers, using the cloud and the APIs into all of these systems. And then finally, you might also hear about, and you do hear about, single customer view projects. So single customer view. And I want to talk about single customer view a little bit. So I have a couple of things that are worth pointing out when we talk about single customer view. So a single customer view is really trying to build this data set we've got in the big fluffy cloud. It's trying to pull together the data from different systems into a single view of the customer. Now that's absolutely fine. I agree with that. I think you need that. And so a single customer view is basically building these links here, right? These two arrows. That's what you're doing. You're building a single customer view and you're putting all the data in one place. What I don't like about this is the word customer. Because we know that most of the people who come to our site, they don't convert. Maybe we've got a 97% of people, if we've got a 3% conversion rate of people who submit leads, 90% of sessions don't result in a lead. And the single customer view, as the name implies, gets built by the IT team, and they only consider customers. So they are automatically blocking out 90% of potentially the people you can target. So when we talk about single customer view, what we're really talking about is focusing on this lower end of the funnel. So you're talking about remarketing and retention strategies. You're not talking about the upper funnel really of acquisition and growth. Now I say really because obviously we've caveated that with similar audiences. You can take information from down here and use it in similar audiences to attract people at the top of the funnel. Yes. But if you're not collecting a lot of or enough information down here about what these people did on the site in your single customer view, then you can't create effective models to create similar audiences. Now, the other challenge with building your own version of this is if people build a single customer view, they forget about activation. Whenever I've seen people building single customer views, they tend to concentrate more on the ingress of data, the data coming in and how they're going to store it. They often forget about how they're going to get that data out of that system into the activation channels. And by activation channels, I mean these guys up here. So not only are we missing out on potentially anonymous people, but we're not building the pipes to activate. Because again, these projects are often run by IT. So IT concentrate on how do we get all the data into one place and store it, but they don't concentrate on exporting it. And even if they do build the pipes to the activation platforms, they maybe don't consult with the marketing team well enough. And so as soon, maybe they build a pipe like we've done here from the system, the single customer view system into Facebook. But then what if tomorrow you want to start advertising on TikTok, right? Or LinkedIn? They then have to build other pipes and you end up with a bit of a mess and a constant headache and a constant internal cost or external cost if you're using devs to build this and to continually upgrade the system. So what's the answer here? Well, the answer is we want to do something that is a little bit cleverer. So let's get rid of this. So let's reimagine how this should be. Okay, so we'll start in the middle. In the middle, we want this. Kind of. I'm going to call it a data repository. Notice I'm not calling it a single customer view because we're collecting anonymous information as well. And ultimately, what we want is this data repository to be accessible to two types of people. First of all, the BI team, who will pull data out, do their statistical modeling on it and push it back in. And we also want it available to the bog standard general digital marketer who is not technical but needs the output potentially of the BI tools, or just to build basic audiences based on conditions such as if this, then that. If they've done this, then do this. All right. So these guys are doing all the fancy stuff: LTV, propensity to convert, next best product. They're putting the results against the customer record in here. And it may be a customer record, it may just be an anonymous person's record. And then the digital marketers can get that and build audiences of people that they want to target. Okay, so digital marketer can build an audience. And now what we also want in an ideal world is this data repository to connect to all the places that we are likely to want to advertise. And as we had before, these are things like email and all of our ad tech. And I'll put in SMS as well, but it's any of those channels. So we want this data flowing out into these systems. Now, of course, some of these systems will be a two-way street. So if someone opens an email, we want that data. We want to know about that, because that may change how we activate someone. So we want that data coming back in. The ad tech doesn't have any user data specifically we can get from it. All we can get is aggregate data. But we do want that aggregate data coming in. And by aggregate data, I mean this is how much we spent per month. This is what our campaigns were. This is how many impressions and clicks we had on those campaigns. And that's all the information you can get out of those systems. You can't get down to a user level to see this particular person clicked this particular ad. For privacy reasons, the ad tech don't give that to you. So some of these are two-way, some of these are one-way. And then up this side, we've got our sources. And as before, we've got the website. We've got the app as well. And whenever someone is doing something, this is feeding in to this system. And likewise, I forgot down here, we've got the CRM system. All right, the CRM, which you may or may not have. A lot of CRM systems. Yeah, so there we go. A lot of CRM systems already have something like HubSpot, for example, can already send out email. So the email and CRM are kind of one. But in this case, let's pretend the CRM is Salesforce. So, Salesforce has Salesforce Marketing Cloud for email, but ignore that for a minute. So what we've got is this kind of hub and spoke model where data flows in. So we collect data from our sources. We unify it. So if we see user with email address, I don't know, Bob here, and if we see email Bob here, and then we get some data in from the CRM system here about Bob, or maybe we've got data coming in from our back-end server, maybe our web server is sending information about Bob that's happening offline. A classic example of this would be a recurring monthly payment. Recurring monthly payments happen when the user is not on the website. So, we can't record that traditionally, but we may want our data repository to know that their card was declined or something like that, so that we can send them an email. So we've got all this data. So the second step is this data repository we put in place is unifying. And this is kind of, I guess, what a single customer view up to this point would be trying to do: collect and unify, but only for known customers. Here we're doing it for anyone. We're doing it for online sources, we're doing it for offline sources, and we're doing it for both known and unknown people. Known and unknown. Why is that? Because marketers need to know about known and unknown so they can target the whole of the funnel. Okay, so collect, unify. And then what's going on down here? Well, we need to allow the marketers to build audiences. So we've got some sort of build audiences functionality in there as well. And then finally, we need to emit. We need the pipes in place so that once the marketer has built that lovely audience of, say, qualified people we're trying to target, it can flow into all the downstream activation systems so that, again, marketers can log in and they can send that email to that audience, or they can bid in Google Ads on that particular person and show them a particular ad, or they can send a message to their mobile phone through SMS. But the beauty is these would all be the same campaign because it's the same audience. We could send all of these our qualified campaign. All right. Okay. And again, the benefit of this system is as soon as they bought, so maybe they buy, that would be logged either in our backend system down here or the CRM, and immediately we'd send a message to the data repository to say, Bob just bought. Doesn't matter if he did that via email, through the CRM system, through a backend system, on the app, on the website. The data repository knows that Bob has bought, and therefore the audience that we built, he would fall out of that because he's no longer qualified, he's purchased, and then that audience list would be synced to all of these things, and he'd be taken out and no longer shown the qualifying campaign because he's no longer in that. We could move him to a different campaign. So to recap, this data repository, it acts as the central hub. It's not a single customer view because it's talking about known and unknown people, but it has 4 functions: to collect, to unify, to build the audiences, and to emit them. Now you're probably thinking, well, this is great, but what is this magical system? Well, it does exist. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is known as a CDP, Customer Data Platform. Customer Data Platform. Now, with all marketing technology, people throw around acronyms all the time, and they will say that their system is a customer data platform. And they will have different definitions of that. Some people think that if they have a database and it's got customer information in it, they have a customer data platform. In my view, a customer data platform is something that does all 4 of these things. It collects it from multiple sources, it unifies it, it allows you to build an audience, and it emits the data to your activation platforms. That, for me, is a customer data platform. And that's always why I struggle a little bit when I see people trying to build their own single customer views, because as we've talked about, a single customer view does the collect and unify somewhat, but it doesn't do the build audiences or the emit. And for me, that's the critical part. And it's also potentially doesn't have a very nice interface for the BI team or the DM team to get hold of. So this is the architecture that I typically go with and I recommend to customers. It's not always needed. Sometimes you can just do manual uploads. If you're a very small business and you have a few leads a day and you don't invest much in your marketing, you don't need a CDP. But if you've got multiple channels, you're a large organization, maybe trying to run marketing campaigns cross-brand, you're trying to push a message across multiple channels to the same set of consumers. Those consumers are moving in and out of audiences the whole time. Or, as I said in this example, it's a lead gen type thing where someone can either buy online or submit a lead online, but then they can do something offline that would prevent them or make you or stop you making you want to show them a particular ad. So again, if someone buys something online, your BI team work out what product to show them next, and you run campaigns to do that. But then they go and buy that thing in the store. You want to know about that so you don't keep advertising to them the wrong product. Having a central place where all your data flows into, but not only that, it's not just flowing in there, it's being able to put people in and out of audiences and then send it to your activation platforms and keep those audiences in sync. That is the real power of a CDP. So I hope that's kind of shown you my approach to data architecture. If this is of interest to you, then do get in touch with me. Figuring this stuff out is very dependent on the kind of systems you need, and knowing the nuances of how all the systems play with each other is really important. And it's important because there are so many bits of marketing technology out there. It's really important that you have someone who knows the exact, helping you through the use cases you're trying to accomplish, and making sure the tech you buy and invest in is going to allow you to do that.